I reckon.
Hello, everybody, and we're live.
Welcome everybody to our first episode of Talk Nerdy to Us. Today is episode 1, How We Got Here. Our friend Joel will be joining us in just a moment. Before we begin, I want to, say thank you for joining us, and also if you're new to the channel, give us a follow. We'd be happy to have you here. Talk Nerdy to Us is going to be kind of an interesting segment. It's not so much one thing or another. It's more or less just us hanging out, kind of talking about various things that either interest us or various topics that we come up with throughout the week or whatnot. This week we're going to be doing How We Got Here, which is basically just us talking about how we got into role playing, the different things that have inspired us over the years, various memories that we've established and whatnot. Also, I apologize if I sound a little nasally. I'm getting over a bit of a cold, but I'll let the boys introduce themselves.
I'm Ben. I typically in our D&D stream. Hi there, Aspen Rat. Well, thanks for joining us. And I typically play Tabletop Keeper in our normal D&D stream, but this time I'm just gonna be plain old Ben. Over to you, David.
Hi, I'm David, and normally I play Fodor, the wee gnome barbarian. I'm gonna be more or less myself, maybe.
Gonna try.
We'll see.
I think so. We'll see how it goes.
And of course, I'm Brian. I normally play Edward, the Everflame Niven, the half-elf druid, Circle of Stars. But today, I'm kind of more or less just going to be running this motley crew through some questions I have prepared to kind of get us started into our first episode of Talking Nerdy to Us. Before we begin, though, one more thing that I want to tell you guys about, and it's something that I feel very personally strong about. Because I wouldn't be able to do what I do when it comes to role-playing game without a good pair of dice. And you can get your very own set of dice from my favorite supplier, Tabletop Loot. Tabletop Loot is a dice subscription box that you can get every month. You pay $25. Everything else is free, so there's free shipping, no need to hassle. Pay before the 20th of each month, and they will ship you out next month's box right around the first week or so of that new month. So, for example, both myself and Ben are currently waiting on November's box, which is already in the mail. So
excited.
That's gonna be a lot. Yeah, that'll be a lot
my
of
first
fun.
time.
Dice Virgin. And I want to let you all know that you can get your own pairs of dice from Tabletop Loot, special from us to you. Just go ahead and select whatever set of dice you like, and you can get 15% off by using the code NOL15. That's NOL15, and you can get whatever set of dice you want from Tabletop Loot, 15% off. That does, however, not actually work when it comes to the subscription box. That's still $25, but it works on every other individual set of dice. So, I mean, hey, with the holidays coming up, you can shop for your favorite nerd and get a good pair of dice, good price, good people. Okay. I'm a little hesitant to get started on this whole thing without Joel. I'll tell you what, why don't we skip my first question, and Ben, David, we're going to go to this question that I want to kind of pose to you guys while the DM's away. Imagine for a moment there's a war, okay? Mm-hmm. You got to pick a side. There's no sitting on the lines in this one. Dice towers. Either you use them or we get rid of all of them. Where do you guys sit?
So I I did get a dice tower recently. It was about like a few months ago, and it's like a collapsible leather one. I might have it right here actually. And
Is it a tray or is it a tower?
it's a tower. Let's see if I can find it. I got frustrated with it because it was actually like I could not roll for crap with it for whatever reason. Every time it was cursed, I swear. This little like magnetic leather jobby here. See, it's got like the flaps in it for making the shapes. You probably can't see it very well in this light, but you unfold it and it forms the like a dice tower that you can put on any dice tray. And I thought it was pretty nice, but then like literally my dice were cursed. I used it a little bit in our last campaign, and I got really mad because like no good rolls were coming from it, so I gave up on it. So it folds up to this nice little thing. But I mean that I kind of like it. It does pretty good, but like I said, I'm pretty sure I bought a cursed one, so I quit using it.
Well, it's nice that it's collapsible and everything else. I mean, that's always a concern of mine whenever I'm using a dice tower, is like saving space at the table, because you don't always have like a huge amount of like when we used to play at work or whatnot. Yeah, like you know, you don't always have the most amount of. That's why I got this one here. It's a little 3D printed one.
Okay.
You can see it's got like a little tab on it.
Okay.
So
You can like stick that on your DM skirt.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, it's really good. I've had a lot of like luck with it and whatnot, but my only complaint is because it's so small, you can only roll one die in it at a time. So if like you're doing with advantage or whatnot, it's.
There's one really cool one that I found on that one of those 3D printing websites that was like collapsible. It like came out and like twisted, and then it's like a tower. And I wanted to buy it, but then my buddy who's got the printer, he said he couldn't figure out how it would possibly print and like work. So we ended up deciding not to go with it. I'd still be curious about it. I might. My brother-in-law is trying to talk me into getting the printer together, so might happen eventually. So,
where do you stand, David?
I have no experience with dice towers. So just for sheer flexibility, I'm going to say nay to the dice towers, because you can roll dice anywhere. Parking lots, bathrooms, living rooms.
I gotta say, I agree with you, because
starter box.
As much as I like dice towers in theory sort of thing, you don't always have the space to, use it. You don't always have like, it's nice to have, sure, but like, I don't know, like if we're gonna like make a hardcore stance of like either all dice towers or no dice towers, I'd rather have a really nice surface to roll on than I would have like a different like for example, this dice tray here that I just like, this is just a thing I got from like Michael's that I went ahead and glued like a foam lining in and whatnot.
Yeah,
like a little fabric lining.
Like I get why people like them, because it makes your dice more consistent. It's supposed to be more random, but I mean like there's nothing like rolling a handful of d6s and just going for it. Like I mean I'm supposed to just like drop them in this tower thing. Like come on, that's boring. But when I'm playing my wizard and I cast fireball, I want to just drop a bunch of d6s and go with it.
Right.
But I honestly thought that topic would be a little bit more divisive than it was. But
I think
we're all pretty in agreement.
I think our group is kind of like we're on the anti-tower side. All of a sudden, I was like, well, yeah, because mine's cursed. So if I found a nice one that didn't take up like a nice collapsible one that didn't take up a bunch of room, maybe I'd think about it. But
the worst are the dice towers that are like made out of like that really kind of like cheap wood. You know what I'm saying? Like the ones where it's like balsa wood or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because like I had one of those that was like kind of made to look like a dragon sort of thing, and it was really nice. Don't get me wrong, but it was like it was crap.
Yeah, it like fell apart.
Quality not great.
Yeah, and then of course like putting the thing together, it took like 5 minutes before every session, anyways, because you had all the different slots and whatnot. It wasn't like it's one of the one where you fold it up. Yeah. So it's like I mean I could see the appeal of a dice tower, but like The practice of a dice tower, a little bit more dicey, if you will.
Give me a nice dice tray any day, and I'll take that.
Oh, speaking of dice towers,
place to always play your sessions and like enough room. I could see like a dice tower, but I mean, how many people play any tabletop game requiring dice in exactly the same spot every time they're going to play?
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, like, even if you are sitting at like a nice table or whatnot, I mean, like, what, you're gonna have everyone there? Like, you bet it's a big table for like everyone to have their own individual like dice tower, and then like you got your thing for.
When
not
I play
everyone's rolling with geek chic,
right? I don't have a Wormwood gaming table, like
yeah.
My battle map takes up my whole kitchen table. Like, what are you doing putting stuff on my battle map, boy?
While we're on the subject of dice towers, there is something that really cool that I got a little while back that I want to show you guys. This is great. This is my favorite dice tower, and this is because, as you'll soon see. Well, I'll let it speak for itself. Give me a second here.
Am I about to get angry with you, Brian?
Sorry?
Am I about to get angry with you?
I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Check this shit out. All right. So, behold, my favorite dice tower.
Done that so
It is
often.
an actual tower
of dice.
That is dice.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
You got your D4 here. Of course, you got your D6.
I don't think I've ever played a game that hasn't devolved into somebody like building a dice tower.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, who doesn't at the table, right?
Eventually you get bored during combat because the rogue's taking too long.
Yeah, like you got someone who's like, checking their character sheet, and they're all like, oh god, what spell do I use?
You had 4 people's worth of turns to think of this.
Me anytime I play a magic user. My bad.
You weren't.
It's not even that bad. Like if you're new to like playing a wizard or whatnot, and you're not used to like how they prepare their spells or whatnot, I'm not even mad at you.
Always fireball.
Fireball.
I mean, fireball's pretty good.
I just
like
don't
chain
have
lightning though.
Chain lightning's pretty good.
Fireball
chain lightning's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, like obviously, if you're new to playing a class or whatnot, I'm not going to come down hard on you or whatnot for taking extra time to like figure out what you're doing. But like,
there's also if you've been playing a while though, like there's a certain point where I'm like, all right, you should already know. Hey Milo, you should already kind of have like, if we've been playing like 5 or 6 sessions, like what's going on, like you know your spells. Like I get annoyed with people that don't like plan ahead during combat, and all of a sudden it's their turn and they're like, oh right, I was supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, it can get pretty annoying when like someone's been playing a rogue for like 6 rogues now, and they're still like, wait, how do I use my extra action or whatnot?
Hello.
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 Sorry, I apologize. There was work, and then somebody started a fire in my microwave. It was me. So, I apologize.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We were having heated discussion. Joel, you're plunging into this war. You gotta pick a side. You either use dice towers exclusively, or you can like get rid of all dice towers. Which do you choose?
Weighted conversation because I have yet to use a dice tower.
Ah.
I don't know. I would have to be of the uninformed minority, apparently, in this argument.
No, you have to pick a
You
side.
have to pick a side. There is no fence riding here.
That's it's
Keeping in mind,
war, man.
You would throw it away and never have the option to dice tower again. Like, is that my life? Like, if I roll a dice, you can be like, oh, you've used a dice tower.
you have to
Never
choose
again
now.
shall you hand roll dice and feel the joy of dice in your hand. Or is it like, I prefer it? Like, if it's there, I will use it. Like, what is
It's
it?
like-
Is it like an absolute? Because
You have
that's
to
a hard
choose.
decision.
You have to choose a side right
It's a
now.
it's a 100% absolute. You gotta pick a side and you gotta stick with it because traitors get charged with treason and then they have to like walk through a room of D4s.
Okay, no. This is what I'm
On the
asking.
floor,
Bare feet.
to be specific.
Since
Yeah.
I've never used one, so this is a purely theoretical thought. Is this if I use dice towers, I'm like now become a snob, and I'm like, oh, hand rolling, that's for plebs. Is that how we do it, or is
Yeah. It's like if there's a war tomorrow and like it's brother
Can I
against
still roll
brother,
dice
nerd
without a
against
dice
nerd.
tower? Can I
Yes.
still roll dice without a dice tower if none is available?
No.
No. Like everyone either gets a dice tower and you are not a nerd until you have one.
Go with old school hand rolling then. I'm sorry. I don't like the stipulation of only dice tower.
It's good.
And that is 100% because I have never used a dice tower.
Yeah. Well, I was
I
saying
was
that
just showing the guys my favorite dice tower.
Well, we were saying that I have one, and I briefly used it during our evil campaign, and it was cursed, so I stopped using it. So.
Oh.
Campaign to this day is my most favorite thing I've ever run.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're not.
I'm sorry. I haven't eaten all day. Like I was working constantly the whole day. So I'm like, and then Missy's like, "Hey, I brought you a sandwich," and I was like, "Hell yeah, you did! You are a super." So I'm eating with the abandon of a like untamed animal.
Hey, that's okay. I mean, we're nerds. That's what we do. We eat at the table. We fucking like talk shit. You know what I'm saying?
I have semi-permanent Cheeto fingers, so I can't shame.
All right. I think we've all answered that question, Brian.
Indeed.
So where was it at though? Like, who was the dice towers? And
Oh,
who was the no?
we were all anti dice tower. So
Yeah, we were
you
all,
chose the
like-
correct side.
Fuck that
You?
dice towers.
Yeah, even Brian.
You're anti-dice tower?
Well, I mean, if we're gonna pick a hard side, then I'd rather have a really nice surface to roll on than I would have a dice tower.
Give me a nice dice tray any day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you had to say what I prefer, if I had a dice tower in front of me, I'd probably use it. But then on the other hand, it's like, I do like the whole process of rolling the dice.
But there's nothing like being a wizard or sorcerer and casting fireball and throwing a fistful of d6s. So like,
No, it's just not the same as plugging them in.
Yeah.
By the way,
Eating the hopper.
it's never a good sign when your DM says, "Oh shit, I'm gonna need more dice for this."
Bad. Very bad.
It has been a long time since I've gotten to that point of needing it because, like, I have gobs of dice.
We haven't played a high level campaign in a long time either. So.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Okay.
we just finished one. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
You literally, like, defeated
that one
all
was,
the guys.
but that one was very RP
Mid-level,
heavy
I
though.
think.
So.
That's mid-level.
Okay. Well, now that everybody's
Only got
here,
to use vitriolic sphere one time, not there.
That's your own choice. It was an evil campaign. You could have used it anywhere.
You said I couldn't kill people willy-nilly.
And not get caught. The whole point was get caught. Mr. Whiskers
man.
was a murder machine. And then he would sit there and lick his
That's because he
paws like a
killed
fluid
homeless
cannon.
urchins left and right for the most part.
Mr. Whiskers had a body count.
Mr. Wizard
He
did
became a
nobody
god
now.
of the dwarves, though. I'm just saying, like, through lying.
Yeah, I did.
good times.
I'm still
good times.
tickled about that.
Yeah, I can't wait. to take you on an epic level campaign where like all the other gods are like pissed at you now. They're like wanting to come get you.
All right. Well, now that we're all here, we can start this thing off. Right. I want to talk to you guys about like how we got here. So the first question that obviously came to my mind when I was kind of like writing up the different things that I would ask is like, I feel very strongly that most nerds don't actually cut their teeth on like a role-playing game to start. Like, that's not how your journey begins. You know what I'm saying? It's always like a TV show I watched as a kid, or some movie, or a book I read. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm reading Tolkien at like a young age or something. So when it comes to like various multimedia, whether that's books, comics, TV shows, movies, music even, what would you guys say is perhaps the most pivotal thing in your guys' history that got you guys to spiral down into nerddom? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was like, can you think of like one particular thing where it was like, oh my god, I fucking watched this movie and like I was hooked? It was like, I'm done after that. Like,
are we talking specifically like fantasy, or are we talking are we talking like nerd things in general? Or are we talking like...
I mean, I would say that like it's more so.
All right, shocking to absolutely no one, I can do a thesis on this one. Like,
so, and...
you know, I like to analyze everything, but like, I don't who's starting this one out, because I can go for days on this one.
Okay, well, here's how we're gonna do it. Joel, do you have a D20 near you?
Hold on. Maybe I have a slew of them.
All right, everyone's gonna roll for initiative.
All right, well, I've got a plus 36 as the session DM. So,
do I use Ticto's initiative, or do I use
straight D20 roll, guys?
All right.
That is a 12.
Ooh.
But with my proficiency, it's 12.
How about you, David?
10.
Oh, hey, Joel, you do go first.
All right. Okay. Little bit of my backstory. I was raised by rather conservative Christian parents, so everything was evil. Anything that was not an angel was obviously a demon. So, me being the person I am, I would catch little snippets of a Saturday morning cartoon where 5 adventurers landed in this magical world. And I was like, oh my god, this is great. It was a Dungeons & Dragons cartoon in like 82. Loved it. I wanted to watch it so bad. Couldn't, because it was obviously a one-way shot straight to hell. So, of course, I was incredibly curious. Never got to see it. I now own this series, and I gotta say, as far as Dungeons & Dragons Adventure go, bad and crappy. But then there was a show, I believe it was a Rankin Bass show. It was a movie, and there was 3 of them that I always lumped together. One is Flight of the Dragons, then there's The Last Unicorn, and one more. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But those 2 were the Flight of the Dragons and Last Unicorn were like right there. Like, I love them. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Oh, the third one, obviously the animated Tolkien series, which was the most horrifying Tolkien version
a whip
ever.
There is a way.
Yeah, it's so scary. A whip
there.
So yeah, that was it. I'm pretty sure they were all from the same company.
Oh yeah, that's all Rankin Bass.
We ain't gonna go to
so that was
war today.
But my god, I was hooked. Like the dragon, and then I remember the part that really sunk me in hard is this nerdy dude in Flight of the Dragons. This nerdy guy was like trying to write a book, and this wizard just is like, oh, let's go to my library of unfinished books, which at my time I thought was the coolest thing in the world. And then I realized it is a library of unfinished books, and it's like a wall. Like, that's bullshit. Like, I personally have started like 11 books. Like, so this should be an infinite hallway of possibilities. Like, there's no, at the time I was like, wow, it's the most magical thing ever. And, but yeah, it hooked me hard. Like, that was it. And then anything that had anything to do with magic was there. Of course, Dungeons and Dragons was the like thing I wanted to be, the holy grail of learning about. But yeah. And then it led to Tolkien, which my parents approved of because that wasn't evil. I was like,
even
there's
though
a
he
fire
was a
demon.
dirty
They're
Catholic.
like, it's a good fire demon. I was like, oh, okay. So,
even though he was a dirty Catholic.
yeah, even though he was a dirty Catholic, but now, I mean, so, it led to that, and then it led to Dragonlance, and then, honestly, it's just that. Like, I've been a dork ever since. Like, I found Magic the Gathering. I was like, oh my god, it's like Pocket Nerds. Like, it's great. So, yeah, that's what led me in there. Like, just being told no. Like a typical child being told, don't look at that. You're like, that's all I want to look at. And then...
Well, obviously, this is really important if my parents don't want me to watch it. Come on.
Yeah, like,
Yeah,
I think it was more, this is where it was really messed up as a child. Like, when you're raised very, very religious, in the midst of the satanic panic, we're like, they're just making up shit left and right. Like, there's all these, like, evil Satanists everywhere just hiding out, and I never see them. So, like, there's all this, like, wild stuff happening, and they're like, well, I don't see this happening, and they're like, that'll send you straight to hell. Like, I literally believe, like, if I opened up the Dungeon Master's Guide, like, it's like in a cartoon, like, a hole will open up, and you just fall straight in. So, like, I remember it was at Royal Hobby, and it was sitting there, and, like, my parents were up in the front buying train stuff, because that's dumb. And I was like, and so I walked back there, and I pulled it off, and I looked, and I saw the artwork. No hole opened up and sent me to hell. So I was like, maybe it's not evil. I was like 9 at the time. I was like, maybe it's not evil. And then it just kind of spiraled. Like, every time I could see it, I would look at it.
You just didn't open the Monsters Manual straight to the Demons page, so that's what.
See, there you go.
I remember it vividly. I opened it up to a page, and it was back in where it was like one of the women with like the wings on and a sword, and like her armor was like goddess, and that's it. And of course,
Chainmail bikini.
And I'm like, yeah, this is definitely evil. No hellfire hole. There's boobies and swords. What's there not to love? That's it's a nuts and bolts journey of where I came from.
How about you, David?
I was kind of indoctrinated into it. I'm related to Joel, so he helped. Also, I came around 10 years later at my inception, so it was post-Satanic Panic, and everyone had loosened up a couple turns. So Star Wars and Star Trek were extremely popular, so I got like that crammed right down my throat by everyone in the family immediately.
Oh yeah.
Dragon Riders of Pern, another series that I was exposed to very early, which nothing says cool like fire-breathing, genetically engineered space dragons.
So that was okay, not
that evil. One was cool because it came from science, and somehow science not evil.
You're not evil.
I don't know.
Not until the last 4 years.
There you go. So yeah, that kind of started off. Probably my first Tolkien experience was the animated Hobbit, which simultaneously made me want to pee my pants and have me crave more terrifying artwork and magic. So I'm like, this is pretty great. Joel taught me how to play Magic the Gathering when I was 7. We were in what, like 3rd or 4th edition? Still pretty fresh. I'm carrying on the tradition there. I taught my 6-year-old how to play yesterday, so we're keeping the family tradition alive. And yeah, it's just been from there. Man, your standard early 90s, 80s cartoons, Thundercats, Power Rangers, Star Wars. Got into the really gritty anime probably a little too early for some. I don't think so, because I thought it was awesome and still think it is the glory days of anime. That CG nonsense out of there. But yeah, now I'm sold my soul to nerddom. This is where I live now.
Yeah, that's about right. How about you, Ben?
So I am a little bit different.
You're not family. Weird.
Yeah.
Story that two people in the same family.
Yeah.
Strange.
So my big thing was I played a lot of video games when I was a kid, and the other thing that my like parents always encouraged was like reading a lot, and as long as like the content wasn't inappropriate for my age, I was like pretty much encouraged to read whatever the heck I wanted. Like I was reading classic literature and stuff and whatnot, just whatever tickled my fancy. I read a lot of Harry Potter, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, all that stuff. And then obviously I played a lot of video games. I think my first real foray into like RPG stuff was probably like Oblivion, like so Elder Scrolls. But I didn't actually even.
That was a good one.
Yeah. So I play, I played so many hours into that game, and I actually didn't really even play D&D until I was in college. I didn't have a lot of like nerds around me. I was pretty much just like my reading and my games that I played. So that's where I kind of got into it, and then I got into a group when I got into college, and they were like, we're gonna play D&D, and I was like, tell me more. And then
But I like my soul, I don't need it.
So like I was like nerdy about everything else, and I was like, well, might as well add one more thing to the pile of nerdy things that I sink all my money and time into.
That's how it starts.
Mm-hmm.
I myself, I had a very similar set of circumstances to Joel, but also Ben. I mean, I was always into like interesting like video games and whatnot. I used to play like Final Fantasy on the classic Nintendo and whatnot, and so like I sucked at it because I was like a little kid, but like I would try.
Fun though.
But
It was hot garbage, but
I mean, yeah, that's how it was. But also, my father had like a bunch of different stuff. Like, for example, my father had like a bunch of old Silver Age comic books and whatnot. So I got to like read a bunch of like Silver Age, like Iron Man and Batman and whatnot. So like I was always into like stories as a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like I was always into like reading about like all these different characters and like because it's like Silver Age, so like it's just shenanigans. It's like the one where it's like Superman sneezes and destroys a galaxy, just casually.
Such dumb stuff going on there.
Dude, I just remember Super Friends as a child.
I did watch the crap out of that.
Dude, that was great. I tried showing it to my children, and they're like, "What's this garbage?" I'm like, "You're about to be disowned. Sit down and watch it. Take notes, you little nerds."
It's like I remember last year when you were like teaching them about Looney Tunes, and they're like, "This is dumb," and then 5 minutes later, "This is the best thing ever."
I just remember they were sitting there, and I was like, "All right," and then I put on like Wile E. Coyote, and they're just sitting there being like, "How did that even happen?" Yeah, physics doesn't even. It's not a thing. Like, but yeah, no, that stuff was great.
If I was gonna say that there was any one thing in particular that definitely influenced my journey into nerddom, it was the library of stuff that my dad had like recorded off of TV onto like blank cassettes, and one of them was Flight of Dragons, and ever since I saw that one, oh man, John Ritter is like the nerdy guy, James Earl Jones is like the evil dragon. Like, oh my god, I was like, I was like, oh my gosh.
I feel like I haven't seen this. I feel like I need to watch it.
1982's The Flight of Dragons.
Why are you on this? Just get off right now and go watch it.
Go watch it.
I saw Last Unicorn on TV. I didn't see that one.
Last Unicorn was pretty good, but for my money, it was absolutely Flight of Dragons. One, because that was the only one out of like the Rankin Bass like fantasy movies that we actually had. Because again, this was a lot of stuff that my dad had like recorded off of TV or whatnot. I mean, like we also had like Star Wars and stuff. But yeah, so Flight of Dragons. Ever since that, I was like hooked on dragons, and I remember, like I was 8 years old. I'm going around with my mom. Sorry.
I said, "What about Spyro?"
No, I was.
Oh,
you are obviously a baby. You are a tiny baby.
You're a man, baby.
Yeah, like when Spyro came out, I was like, I think it was, what was it like? If it wasn't like my freshman year of high school, it was like the year before.
Okay,
or so.
fair. Yeah, that was like a PlayStation like release title. So
yeah. And hell, I didn't even have a PlayStation until I was like a much older. Because like for the longest time, like my family isn't rich or anything, so like we just had like the one game system, which was the NES, and then like eventually I graduated to like a PlayStation, but that was like way into my like middle school / early high school days and whatnot.
Fair.
And then so
It was real, man.
Spyro was the first game where I was like, I love video games, and I just played the shit out of like the first 3 of them.
I remember Final Fantasy VII when I saw the first cutscene.
Yeah.
Where I'm sitting there like. Because I remember I sunk like 120 hours into that game, probably in a month. Like it was wretched. And then that's back when you had to buy the walkthrough player's guide. Like you beat it, and then you're like, that was unsatisfactory. So you went back and bought it, and then you found all the secrets and stuff.
Yeah,
Before the internet made it easier.
So I didn't play FF7 as much because I get really frustrated with those really crunchy JRPGs. But I had there's a foreign exchange student that like lived with me during that time when like FF7 was like new, and he like played the shit out of it, and I'd just sit and watch him play for hours. So that like I remember FF7 vividly.
The storylines of the Final Fantasy series were phenomenal up until like
10.
I played Final Fantasy. I think I got to like 9 or 10 or whichever one. You like your school suddenly could turn into like a traveling building.
Oh, that was 8. Yeah,
that was a weird one.
Gunblade, where the girl, the witch with big tits, would just wave him around, and you're like, this is weird.
9 was weird with because that was when they like tried to not do the turn-based thing.
No. That wasn't 9. That was like the first one that they didn't do. Real turn-based one was like 11.
No, Vincent Valentine. There's like a shooter one.
Oh, you're talking about like the Dirge of Cerberus sort of thing?
Yeah.
That one was
Yeah, that was a
weird.
This is a spin-off or
That
whatnot.
was a fun one, but
Oh man,
it was
I
still
still
weird.
around so hard with that series.
Yeah.
Like 3, 7, 12.
3 is the best.
7.
Like any way you want to look at it, like
7.
3 was the one that the storyline hooked me pretty hard.
I grew up on 3.
Cloud
on the SNES.
Strife.
Now, just to be clear, we're all talking about like American 3, not like Japan 3, right?
Yeah, I didn't have a hacked SNES. I don't even know what that was about.
Yeah, no, you're obviously next level nerding. That's a different stream, Brian Ballard.
Yeah.
Next time. All right.
On advanced nerds.
All right.
Low-level nerds.
Did play some hacked PS2 Japanese games. Those were fun.
Oh, do you remember all my hacked were they PlayStation 2 games? Were you
I don't know.
Nice fighting game where the woman would smother you with her beaver?
Oh yeah, you had that crazy European game that was like banned in America, and you had to like find a way to get a copy of it and rip it to a CD.
Somebody gave me, and the greatest game of all time, Pepsi Man. That was amazing.
Pepsi Man.
Just the best product placement ever. Just a guy running indefinitely. It was like Temple Runners, like first run.
Yep.
But it was
all right.
Pepsi. It's terrible. No plot.
Everyone roll for initiative again.
Oh, shit.
The next question will be, What was your first experience like when you started tabletop RPGs? Because it could be the first time you started D&D, or maybe it was you watching someone else play. Like, what was your first experience? But more so, do you consider it to be a good experience
in the room that I did that in?
I mean, like, yeah, but like, I mean, I'm sure the audience would love to know like what it was like.
No,
but also, do you think it was a good experience, like, or was it something where it set an unreal expectation?
My initiative was 18.
Okay, Ben. All right, David.
3.
Oh,
okay.
Not less this time.
Joel, you go again.
Weird. All right, do you want the entire story of how I got to the table the first time, or
whatever you feel is appropriate? Whatever you feel is appropriate.
I had never played Dungeons and Dragons or any tabletop RPG. I made a little attempt to play Werewolf the Apocalypse, but then strangely enough, the DM joined the Marines the next day and like shipped out. Which I was like, wow, so I guess we're not playing. So anyways, I was sitting at work at Synchron, where I worked with Brian, and I was playing something called Merge Dragons. It's a silly game where you just merge, and somebody asked me what I was doing, and I said
played that too.
It's so much fun. And I was like, yeah, it's a merging game. It's dragons. I'm like, I love all that stuff. You know, like, and I want to play Dungeons and Dragons. And at that time, Brian's wife was sitting in her office, like, maybe 3 feet away. And I just see this head pop out, like, Dungeons and Dragons, you say? That's exactly what it was, except she's got really, really long hair. And so it was at the time. And so it's like this floating head that's like, would you like to play Dungeons and Dragons? And I was like, yes, I've always wanted to play. She's like, let me see if I can have something happen. I'll talk to my husband. 14 seconds later, Brian Ballard appeared. He's like, so, what are you interested in? And I'm like, I don't know. I want to like do stuff and shoot fireballs. He's like, excellent. And then he asked me a few more questions. Came to me with a character named Zinlahar. I named him. That's about the only thing I did with it. And it was a drow arcane trickster. Level 6 character for Curse of Strahd. And it was, I remember, like, I was talking to Missy, my fiance, soon-to-be wife, which all these guys will be in my wedding, in about a month. I remember chattering, like, super duper excited about this. Like, I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna play it. I'm like, what if it's gonna suck? What if it's not? It's not gonna suck. It's gonna be great. And then I get in there, and there's this big table, and there's like, look at Brian's screen where he's got the fireplace in the back. Like, he had settings for it. Like, the whole mood is set. And like, I'm sitting there across of this kid named Will, who is phenomenal, and he played a character that was a werewolf that for a period of time would shapeshift into a werewolf on fire by yelling the phrase "get fucked." And I was like, this is the best thing ever. It's Sam, and Brian's wife, she played a paladin. She was like ditzy and like kind of sleazy. It was awesome. Like, and then we had like an overpowered necromancer that didn't want to do anything, so he ended up leaving the game. But it was, honestly, it became like I was hooked from that point. Like, from the first time the dice rolled, I didn't do any voices. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't know anything. I was like, just like, fucking had this rager the whole time that I'm playing this game. Like, my nerd boner was like fucking breaking through. And yeah, it was it. Like, I loved it so much. Like, Brian had this ability to like roll with the punches. I felt like it was like playing a video game. And yet, like, it allowed me a freedom to play a character that was like, it would do, like, I knew what my limitations were and was able to act accordingly within them. And I felt like, I literally have had, like, dreams of being that character afterwards. Like, I can imagine myself, and in my head, the smells of what Ravenloft are, and you know, it's just, and like the squeals of Izek as I burned his little toys away as he collected those creepy dolls. I just lit them on fire and threw them away. Like, all of that stuff. Like, it was awesome. Like, it hooked me forever. I still
Do you remember the heist that you and Tim went on?
I still have the first set of dice that Brian gave me from that one. Complete with my metal mini of Zin Lahore. Look at him. He's metal because my child destroyed him. Like, this one honestly is like in a place of honor on my shelves.
Do you remember the little heist that you and Tim went on?
Which one?
Where he was the one where he looks over at you and he's like, "You want to fuck shit up?" And you're like, "Yes, I do."
You know I do. Yep. That was a good time. But that's it in a nutshell. So, and now because of me, I am addicted to Dungeons and Dragons.
Good stuff. Ben, how about you? What was your first experience like? And do you consider it to be a good kind of like foot forward sort of thing?
Yeah, so I first got approached about D&D. I was in college, and a couple of my buddies, they had groups in the past, and they were looking to start again, start a new group, and they were like, "Hey, Ben, you want to play?" And I was like, "Yes, that sounds fun." You know, I didn't really like played it at all. I just like knew it like pop culturally, you know, like this is before Critical Role. So my first D&D RP like TTRPG experience was with 3.5 actually. So really crunchy, really like hot. So like I think I made my first character, and I had to get like, now you can kind of like do it yourself a little bit, but like making a 3.5 character as like starting 5th level was like a lot of work, a lot of questions, a lot of like really like in-depth stuff.
Very crunchy.
So, like, yeah, it was like, because you had to pick a feat feats all the time. Like your feats were like how you created your subclasses essentially. Like subclasses weren't really a thing in back then, and it was, you know, I kind of like miss that little bit of like customization of 3.5 where you can kind of like, if you have a concept, like there's something that you can like use to like make that character happen. But I made my first character, and his name was I believe it was Ivan Skullcrusher, and he was back then you could use a half giant template to create a character, and I created a half giant barbarian bear warrior, and who basically shapeshifted into a werebear every time he raged, and it was a lot of fun. It only went for a couple sessions because college and everyone would rather party on the weekends rather than spend an entire Saturday playing D&D, or we were all engineers and we didn't have enough time to devote that much to D&D at the time. But I remember an interesting moment from that was I was always the one after that was like, "So when are we gonna play again?" And then it just kind of like, the group kind of fizzled because either people were like didn't want to commit, or like scheduling conflicts and all that stuff. So like, it was a really good experience. I wanted, like, instantly gave me a taste where I wanted more, but my only regret is that I didn't get to like really play a whole lot of that. And yeah.
What campaign was it?
It wasn't a specific campaign. It was a one shot written by the DM. So I remember we ended up in a city, and then we got asked by the guards to go check out a disturbance at a warehouse, and all the guards were like cowering outside, and apparently someone had smuggled a pair of hydras into the warehouse, and they had gotten loose, and so then we had to like murder the hydras, and Golnor went into a rage, and Ivan went into a rage.
You played Golnor when I ran out of the abyss
Sorry.
too.
Ivan went into a rage.
You got a type.
Yeah, that was my first few characters were all barbarians because they're a lot of fun. But Ivan went into a rage, and I basically kept cutting the heads off of the Hydra until the Hydra couldn't passed out. But
enough with their head slicing thing.
during the fight, the bard, who is a buddy man that I still hang out with, cast rage onto my barbarian while he was already in a rage, which the DM ruled would be I had to roll a wisdom save to determine whether or not I kept my sanity, I think was the mechanic that worked at the time. That was just the DM ruling. And I failed it. And so I went into like, I got the bonuses of like double rage, but I also like went completely like could not my IFF sensor went on the fritz, and
oh shit.
Another character at the end of the fight went up to me and because I was still like basically like hacking the dead corpse of the dead Hydra, and he's like, he went up to me and someone was like, he's your cousin, because in the game this other guy's character was my cousin, and one of our other guys were like pushed him forward. He's your cousin. You figure out what to do. And he bumped into my character, and my character went, "What is your problem?" And basically turned around and immediately attacked the person who was my character's cousin, who had seemed to have attacked me by pushing into me, and I crit. And because I was a half giant attacking a halfling who was already at low health, I basically hit for so much damage because of like the size modifiers that I turned the character into pink mist. For the DM's words.
You pink misted a hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
You're a
Nice
person.
So how about you, David?
He was a problem character. Well, let's just leave it at that. We wanted him dead anyway.
Who, the halfling?
The halfling, yes.
They're like, finally my overwhelmingly circuitous plan comes to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
How about yourself, David?
Me? Let's see. I kind of like initially just overshot the table and landed deep into LARP land. My first foray into RPGs. Yeah, that was interesting. I only did it once due to mostly the people in the group getting together and being a teenager without a car at the time and things like that. But
I've never LARPed, but I kind of want to.
So
it's fun.
What are you talking
It's fun. We actually LARPed Vampire the Masquerade. So if you can imagine just 20 awkward goth kids in a house playing Vampire the Masquerade, it went like that. We thought it was a lot of fun.
Except he actually drank gallons of blood, and I had to take him to the hospital.
Not the LARPing I was hoping for, but I will accept it.
Yeah, it's still LARPing. It was a lot of fun. So that kind of like, I'm like, this is kind of neat. I could be down with this. Wish I could do this more often. Circumstances prevented it. Fast forward probably 4 or 5 years later, when I was in the Navy, it turns out there were a bunch of nerds on my ship, and I ended up being roommates with them on land. So we started doing Dungeons and Dragons sessions, and it turned out to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, like, deployment workups and training and always being at sea, just being too goddamn busy for things like any manner of game for a while prevented that. But it was fun while it lasted. We had some really interesting dynamics and ye old 3.5 going on. I was a scythe-wielding human fighter, and our DM ran us through like a wizard challenge tower that basically just killed adventurers left and right. So he ran us through that. We succeeded in going through all the different challenges. I mean, it wasn't one you could just fight your way through. There was a lot of stuff you had to like, think challenges around. I mean, not Tomb of Annihilation level, but it got tricky.
Thank you for following Jaded Jester. And I see a few people who are on that I don't recognize the name of. So if you like what you're hearing, we typically play D&D on Wednesday nights. If you're liking what you're hearing, please give us a follow, and so that you know the next time we're on.
Okay. Right. As a reward for making it through that tower, we got to pick some like races from the expanded books, since we had like all of the 3.5 books at our disposal at that time. So we got to pick 2 races and roll to get magically combined with those races.
Oh, nice.
And get, like, depending on what we rolled, percentages and bonuses or negatives and whatnot would come from it. So I ended up as I forgot the name of it because it's been so long. The Navy is just so much goddamn alcohol. You tend to forget things. The dwarves that come from the plane of fire.
Oh, not the Duragar.
I forgot what they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like metal skin. Them and the I think they're lawful. No, they're not lawful good. I think they might have been chaotic good snake people with like really vibrant wings, natural bards. Not Wanti, not like the opposite of Wanti.
They're everywhere.
Friendly. Yeah, they're everywhere. These ones had crazy parrot wings and natural bard powers and stuff. So I picked those. So I ended up now being able to turn myself on fire and had wings. So I became like a weird.
You're looking for
tactical...
Azer. Is the
is it Azer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the snake people. They're not Wanti because they were good. They were specifically in the good alignment range, unlike the Wanti, who are evil pricks.
Well, speaking of rewards.
Uh-oh. We got a bit of a freeze here.
Oh, did I glitch out there?
Yeah, we had like a weird 10-second.
Xfinity's been having issues, and so they keeps like dying and all. So I don't know if it's just bad luck or like.
I looked and it wasn't. My internet still showed that it was doing fine. I don't know what happened there. Sometimes it doesn't like if I swap between windows, so I'll stop doing that.
Okay, well, anyways, NOL 15. Go to Tabletop Loot, and you can get 15% off any dice set that you choose, or you can get their dice subscription box. $25 a month guarantees you minimum 4 sets of dice delivered to your door every month.
Got mine on my way right now.
You have gotten me. I've gotten a couple Tabletop Loots. Like they're not bad. They're good dice.
You remember the set I got you, or the box I got you for Christmas last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
With all of the like seasonal glitter in there and stuff like that. Yeah. Those
I love that
have been stolen by my children.
Oh.
Who have incorporated it. They're like, I'm gonna play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not gonna tell them no. And they're like, how about these? So yeah, I've got bags of dice all over the place now. So
good stuff. Tabletop Loot.
The question we should delve into one of these times is the number of people that are dice hoarders, or the ones that's like 4 is enough.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we move from that on to this question? This one's going to be kind of fun. If you were a die in a standard set of 7, which of the die would you be? Would you be a D6, a D4? But like more importantly, why?
6. No, my roll was 6. We're rolling initiative.
All right. Roll 8.
Oh my gosh. 4.
I challenge you, Brian, for I too have an 8.
All right, roll off.
You posed the question, so I feel like he gets
13.
That's not as fun.
You get
What'd you get?
roll-off treatment.
I got a 13. What did you
got
get,
a 13? Sir? I got a 17 that time.
Ah, shit, you beat me. All right, go ahead, David.
Huzzah! Did I get highest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was unprepared. I made a mistake. You're not challenged. Error. Instructions unclear. Dick stuck in toaster.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
I think a D12.
Yeah, why do you say a D12?
Oh, this is going to be kind of a lame answer, but it's because I rarely get to use them, and I want to put it to use, so I'm going to be the D12. I'm going to roll my happy ass everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely going to say that I would be a D6, just because it's versatile, everyone kind of like knows it, everyone kind of uses it. It's just kind of like, the village bicycle and whatnot. I am definitely all kinds of versatile myself, so I'm going to say I'm a D6.
Like a D6, like a D6.
Hate you really.
Like a D6.
How about yourself, Joel?
I am a absolute scatterbrain. And at times am like, how did that happen or come out of my mouth? So I'm actually going to have to say I would have to be the percentile dice.
Ooh, nice.
Because, yeah.
But is it a percentile die or is it 2d10s?
We're all one, shut up.
Because you can get a D100.
I will climb through this computer.
I mean, there's a difference.
Standard set of 7 only applies.
That's fair.
So,
okay.
Yes, but the percentile dice are used in unison for a specific function.
Indeed.
That's fair.
True.
And I think with my ability to space the hell out and get be able to tell a story or at the same time get confused by grass. Pretty widespread there.
You weaponize the percentile dice really well though when you're DMing, which I applaud. So
it's true.
Yes.
Indeed.
Well, I appreciate that. I love letting the dice pick the story.
Mm-hmm.
That way,
yeah.
that way I enjoy it too. If you know everything that's going to happen, it's not as much fun.
That's why tabletop gaming is not like writing a novel. It's just everyone shares in this creation of a story,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like my favorite one is how you guys ended that evil campaign. I hadn't planned on that ending for several more sessions, and you're like, let's go back in time and just rewrite history. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
You guys are assholes.
One day we'll have to do a recap of that campaign for the peeps. But
I literally have been going over the notes. I'm like, I could write this into a book. A ridiculous book.
All right, Ben, what about you?
So I'm going to copy someone's answer, but I have a different reason. And my response is D12. Basically because my first character was a barbarian, and my first 4 characters were barbarians. So for people that aren't as familiar with D&D, D12 is a seldomly used die except for by one class. Barbarian. They use it for their HP. They use it for their weapon of choice. It's just I feel like it's an all-around fun die to roll. It's just I like the D12. It's a very satisfying polygonal shape. That's my
All right,
choice.
right on.
Notice no one chose the D4.
Because it's
The least
Nobody
chose
chose
to
to
roll.
because the D4s are caltrops.
They don't roll.
Yeah,
They
they
do
don't
one
roll
flippy
either.
do and stop.
For this next question, I'm actually going to go over to the email box. By the way, if you guys want to interact with us, you can always type in chat. But if you want to send us questions that we can address here on Talkin' Nerdy to Us, you can actually go to NOLTalkNerdy@gmail.com. and you can send us whatever questions you like, and we will address them on the show.
Why don't you put that up with that other sign there, Brian, just for now?
Mainly because the font is a little too tiny.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't quite. Yeah,
That's fair.
I thought about that earlier.
That's fair.
But yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to send them to us. So going to the email, this one here says, "Hi guys, I'm kind of new to RPGs and I'm looking to get started, but I'm not sure how. Can you give me any tips like what I might need or how to find a group?" And it's signed by Kyle. So we want to roll initiative?
Go for it. Yeah.
Even no, I'm gonna say, Brian, you take that one.
Okay, that's cool.
I feel like since you are literally responsible for this entire thing happening because you taught me how to do it. I got you guys to play this game online when COVID started. All of this shit is your fault. You should answer the question on how to get people into gaming.
You planted the seed, bro.
Yeah, you definitely planted the seed. And let's be honest, if you were a farmer, it would be a nerd farmer. Like, don't even pretend.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
outside in your bib overalls, being like, man, the dorks are coming up pretty good this year.
That tracks, yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, well, first and foremost, Kyle, let me say thank you for the question. And second, really, there's no bad way to start when it comes to role-playing games. If you're not feeling comfortable with role-playing games, you can always ask your friends if they've got any games going, and you can sit in, and there's no shame in that. So, first and foremost, you should know that, like, no matter how you want to dip your toes into the water sort of thing, there's no particular way that you need to necessarily start doing gaming. As far as, like, what you may need, well, that depends on what interests you. For example, if you want to do D&D, which is currently the most popular role-playing game possibly in the country / in the world, according to a lot of data and whatnot, then the only thing that you're really going to need is maybe a pencil and some paper. Your DM should be able to walk you through building a character and whatnot. And the only thing you'll really need is a set of dice. Standard set of 7. You can go to pretty much any hobby store in America. They sell them like crazy. You can also go online, of course, and find them. But you can also go to Tabletop Loot and get 15% off. Anyways, the thing that I will say is if you're actually looking to get into it, like real deep into it, you might want to also consider picking up like a player's handbook. But if, say, for example, D&D is not your preferred system, if you're like, yeah, I want to get into role playing, but like I'm not the biggest fan of like high fantasy, there are plenty of other games for you to try. Some of the more popular ones are The World of Darkness, including Vampire, which is now currently in its 5th edition. That's a phenomenal one. I personally really like Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
That one has... Call of Cthulhu is amazing.
Call of Cthulhu is responsible for this gaming group getting together.
That's true. That's very true. But
that's so much.
Even if you're not necessarily into either high fantasy or like horror role playing, there's also like different sci-fi games. Like Fantasy Flight Games recently came out with. There is Warhammer, yeah. But there's also Star Wars. There's Doctor Who. A lot of different things that you can kind of mix and match with current media trends. So, like, let's say your favorite show right now is I don't know, like. Maybe you're really into like CW Flash or whatnot, whatever. There are plenty of games out there that will tailor to superhero role playing. Some of my favorites include Masks, or also Mutants and Masterminds. That's really fun too. But yeah, so like there's all sorts of different like systems out there, and they all kind of have like their own like rules and whatnot. And if you're looking to get into role playing game, I really recommend that one of the things you do is like you find yourself either a comic book shop in your area or even like just like a hobby shop or whatnot, and ask if they've got any tabletop role-playing games going on. Most comic book shops and whatnot nowadays will save like a day of the week so that people can come there and do role-playing games. And that's really the best way to like jump in and like, see what other people are doing.
Yep.
Yeah, depending on the area you're in, if you happen to be in the area that we are all from, no, not David, but or like in the Belvedere area, we do know that CJ's Hobbies does Dungeons and Dragons. I believe it's on Wednesday nights.
Likewise, if you're in the Rockford area. Sorry, was that?
I was say Cataclysm has some too, I think.
Yep.
Cataclysm's more like Warhammer and stuff.
But they do have D&D in it, though.
If you're in the Rockford area of Illinois, you can also go to Top Cut Comics, and I do believe they've got Dungeons and Dragons going on every Sunday. So there are plenty of places where you can start, plenty of things that you can do to kind of like dip your toes in the water. But really, the most important thing is just taking that first step, because there is no wrong way to approach it, but you do have to actually approach it. Sitting on the sidelines and just watching, say, for example, Dungeons and Dragons streams is good and it's fun, but it's never going to be that substitute for a real gaming group. There's nothing like being at a table with your friends and just nerding out. So,
yeah, just get out there and find it. Like, you can. There are groups also online. There's Facebook groups you can get on and join people's online games.
I was going to say, Roll20.net, I believe there's a looking for group option on there. If you're a Redditor, if you look at the D&D subreddit, sometimes you can like find looking for group threads as well, looking for members threads and stuff like that. It all just depends on how hard you want to look for it. Some people prefer to play with people they already know. I mean, maybe you just ask your friends if they even play or if they know anything about it or if they'd want to look into it with you. I mean, it all just depends,
Yeah. And don't worry about like if you don't have a lot of money to spend on an RPG either. Mm-hmm. You don't have to necessarily go out and buy like a $40 or $50 like player's handbook in order to like really jump into the game. Most, DMs or people who already do like these games or whatnot, they'll usually have a book that you guys can share. Or if, that is kind of above your, thing, that you can always like look online. There's tons of information out there as well.
And D&D Beyond even has like the basic tools for creating a character. You might not have all the source material, but you can at least create a basic character based off of the player's handbook, I believe.
Oh yeah, I think you get 6 free characters on their free accounts, and they'll provide the sheets. They've got dice rollers.
They have a full character builder and everything. So
yeah.
Or if you want to be adventurous and create your own group, I mean, the starter set's a great way to go. Mm-hmm. My first game I ran with the help of Ben was the starter set to the Lost Mines of Philadelphia. It's a classic module, level 1 through 3, really helps you get a good feel of what it's about. Gives you some dice sets and pre-made character sheets. So it's a great way to get started. If you have a bunch of people who are interested but never played it, there's no real wrong way to play Dungeons and Dragons.
And actually, if you're, again, Dungeons and Dragons is not your thing, a lot of other places have started doing starter sets as well. Mm-hmm. I know that I have the starter set for My Little Pony, Call of Cthulhu. I mean, like, there's everything back here. So, I mean, like...
So fun.
Just everything. So, I mean, like, yeah, it really depends on what you're into and just, getting out there and doing it. Okay. How about we move on to... what do you guys say? Do you guys want to do a couple more questions for the night?
Yeah. Did we have any more on the email there, or are we good?
Actually, I think we do have one more email.
Yeah, I think we should go to those first before we do any of the ones we thought of.
Okay. All right. So this one here is from Tiffany. She says, "Can't help but notice the lack of girls in your cast. WTF? You boys scared or something?" To which Tiffany, I will say, terrified.
Very scared. Very scared.
Yes, we're all rampant misogynists. No, I'm just kidding. It's just how the group came together. We didn't really plan it. It was just I think it started out with you and me, Joel, and then we added David on, and then after a while, in the midst of the pandemic, Brian got some extra time where he could join us, and that's where the group went. It wasn't anything that just happens to be our group dynamic. We're 3 of the 4 of us are married, and within the next month, 4 of the 4 of us are married. It's no reason where we're not. There's no reason why we don't have women in the group, but our wives.
My wife refuses to play. That's one of the reasons.
My wife
I attempted.
I got her into Magic the Gathering. That's as far as I'm going to push that nerd boundary, because she likes Magic the Gathering. I'm not going to test the waters. I got somebody to play Magic with whenever I want. I mean, like, let's not push it. We all know that she will fall into the D&D tray one day. She'll be walking and get a dice and be like, "Oh, I rolled it. What happened?" I'll be like, "Hey, it's mine."
She opens a book portal of hell.
That's right.
Pulled into hell. I was getting women into Dungeons and Dragons that takes you to hell. I didn't know that. But to be fair, I did just buy my niece her first set of metal dice, which gives her some table swag, and she's super excited. She's 13.
Nice.
It's not, it is just lack of opportunity. We just don't have a lot of women that are interested in joining right now.
Thanks for rubbing it in.
Yes, it makes us feel bad.
Like that. But we do have, all of our wives are very much in the idea of, don't you have a stream to do? Shut up and go play D&D so I can get something done. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Like Brian's wife was awesome enough to play a session of vampires with us.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and she's super into like Vampire the Masquerade. Like honestly, if I get like she's like all over it.
Brian's wife, she played my first session of Dungeons and Dragons. So I literally thought she was like more hardcore into it, and then she wasn't.
I mean, she'll play every now and again because she, really enjoys like, spending time with me and whatnot. But like more so than anything else, Vampire's just kind of like the way. Actually, if you really want to get into it, like when the new edition of Werewolf launches, she's gonna be all over that shit. Like I'm gonna have to buy every book like immediately. Like I mean, like I'm gonna be the first one in line to buy a Werewolf just because like that's gonna be my wife's shit.
Are we gonna have to take a hiatus and to stream some Werewolf for a bit?
I don't know. Maybe we will. We'll see. We'll talk.
I'm game. I haven't played that one yet.
You're just sitting there in regular clothes. You're like, "Why are you not wearing your werewolf costume?" You're like, "Yes, dear."
Well, actually, the thing that I'm really interested in.
Ben's wife played a bard who didn't talk, and she would do Cloud of Daggers.
No, she talked. She talked. She just.
No, all of her spells were via dance.
Yes.
Yeah, where she did Cloud of Daggers by twerking.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which is really cool when you talk about it until you realize the mechanic and the visual of playing it is like they come straight out of her butt as she twerks. So you're like, it's cool as farting daggers, but like, whatever. It was very entertaining.
It was hilarious. That's what mattered.
I'm 5, so fart humor makes me laugh.
And that was also at the same time where we had gotten my son into it, and I did not know how to roll stats. So he had literally like a godlike paladin with like 3 20s in his stat block. And so he's like, "Can I use that character?" Absolutely not. That's paladin. You're trying to use Bahamut. Like, no, it's not fair.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that's all the email questions we have. Did we want to do 1 or 2 more of like the other questions I got prepared?
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
Okay. Here's one that I came up with because I thought that like when talking about like RPG's experience and whatnot, I think that it's important to acknowledge that not every experience you're going to have is necessarily going to be a good experience, and not everyone who you play with is necessarily going to be the kind of person who either you're going to have like a good group dynamic with, or maybe you're just not the kind of person who's going to be into RPGs in general, sort of thing. And that's okay. It's not necessarily, you know, like anything against you or whatnot. Everyone's got their own flavors. Everyone's got their own, you know, styles of play and whatnot. So over the years, what would you guys say has been some of the difficulties that you guys have faced when it comes to playing RPGs? Sometimes that could be something as simple as like scheduling, or sometimes it could be something like maybe there was a problem with the player dynamic or something like that. Or maybe you played something that, you know, like, say, for example, you just couldn't get into, you know, like, so initiatives.
Oh, finally, double digits. I got 16.
Nice. David?
12.
All right.
Ben?
I think
roll is good.
I mean, we've had a couple times over the years. I think I've played the longest with Joel out of anybody. But I think obviously scheduling is always like a big problem. You know, some people, when I view a D&D group, I view that as like a commitment that I make, that I'm going to set aside every week a certain time. Some people don't always view it that way. Obviously, things can shift from week to week, but like it's typically nice, you know, something like this to have a set time every week that you play. And it doesn't have to be 6 hours. I know some groups do that, but like just even if it's just like 2 hours a week where you're gonna set aside where you're gonna hang out with your buddies and play, it's good. That was our issue. I think my first big issue I had when I was playing was we had a really rampant and obvious cheater we were playing with, who was cooking his dice rolls, and that was the character that got turned to pink mist, if anyone was wondering. But because of the fact that it's disruptive, you know, everyone wants to have their little moment to shine, but you know, like even those like moments of failure in this game are, you know, they can be really funny, they can really be really fun. When you have somebody that's like not being truthful, you know, like hiding their dice rolls behind a screen, like who's not the DM, because the DM has that prerogative, or when you're like outside of the game telling plans to be disruptive, that led to a couple issues. And I'd say a couple games ago, me and Joel, we had an issue with somebody who was kind of disruptive in the way that they were questioning.
David was in that game too, remember?
Yeah, David was in there too. Sorry, you know, questioning. You know, at a certain point, it's like yes, there's rules as written, but also at the same time, it's up to the DM. You know,
remember
like,
that one also violated the whole point of, like, if you have to. They had a view, like when the number one rule when you go into Dungeons and Dragons, in my mind, sorry to take over a bit, is
you're fine.
Accept that it is the game you are coming to play, not the game you want it to be.
Yeah.
So if you're playing Curse of Strahd, but you really want it to be like. You really want it to be like an episode of Critical Role. It's not going to be. Because Critical Role is set in Exandria with a whole different thing. And Curse of Strahd is in Ravenloft. Entirely different world. You can't play Out of the Abyss and be like, but when I played... No. Every game is different. I run a bunch of games, they're different. And Ben can run the exact same game, and it's going to be wildly different. Same thing with if Brian runs it. And you have to accept you are part of a group. And this player did not accept it was part of a group. This player was like, every time you turn around, he's going to wander off. Didn't listen to anything. And it was disruptive and very difficult.
Played a rogue that didn't sneak, and played a paladin that didn't heal or smite.
Or you smite in hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say that, you know, it's frustrating, you know, like I've dealt with cheaters. Thank you, Milo. Thanks for watching.
Yep, that's one of our viewers on Twitch.
Yippo. Danky.
So I'd say, like, I've dealt with cheaters. I've dealt with, people who can't commit to scheduling things. And I've dealt with people that, just didn't really mesh well with the group, or didn't, like, they're playing, you came to play D&D and they came to play Skyrim,
How about you, David? What would you say is your biggest, like, hurdle that you've come across while playing RPGs?
I think finding a group and scheduling, or maybe a mismatch of those two things, can be really difficult. Aside from the issues with some of the problematic characters we've had come and go from our group previous to the stream, when like maybe the people that are hosting the game, not necessarily the DMs, kind of like take away that open world aspect that it's like the bread and butter of a game like D&D, where it's like, what's the point of this? Oh, you can do whatever you want. I mean, there's going to be pros and cons, and if you make the DM mad, rocks might fall, you might die, but like you still have that choice. I had a session when I was reaching out to a new group, and it was hosted by a couple, and they were very weird and particular about certain styles of play, and it's like, okay, this is really weird. I don't think I'm gonna. Not only did it not like mesh well personality and play style wise, it was like, all right, so if I decide I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to be told no by someone who's not DM repeatedly. That's probably my least fun group dynamic or issue I've had with the game, is when people do that. It's really not, takes the enjoyment away. It's like, oh, okay, so I guess I'm just going to be railroaded by a random party member.
Yeah.
This is fun. Other than that, it's been primarily scheduling. It seems to be the bane of all tabletop gaming groups.
I mean, as you get older, I think that that's common, because like people have got like jobs and families and like social lives and everything else. So it's more and more common. Although I would say that like in recent years, as like a lot of tabletop gaming has kind of moved over to like a more digital format, it's a little bit easier nowadays, in the sense that you don't necessarily have to be at the same table and stuff like that.
Discord and Twitch are a godsend. Be like, I mean, I'm not even in the same state as the rest of my party here. I'm in Tennessee. They're in Illinois. They're all in different parts of Illinois. It's like, it doesn't matter. We can figure out a time to play.
The only time we screw up is when we screw up Central versus Eastern time. That's the only time we have a problem.
I'm gonna go a little bit too bad. Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit different on my answer, because we all have like scheduling conflicts. We all have like the occasional problem player that'll be all like, oh well, whatever. But for me, I'm gonna say the biggest hurdle that I've actually encountered while kind of like engaging in tabletop games has really been myself, because a little known fact about me, I do a lot of games. I run a lot of stuff. And, sometimes I can feel to myself like, oh, that was a really good game or whatnot. But every now and again, you'll get that little niggle in the back of your head that kind of like, well, okay, was that really like a good game? Like, did it seem like your players were actually having fun? Or was it more like they were kind of like saying that they were having fun because they didn't want to have to like, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, sometimes you're
hurt your feelings, but they stuck with you for 6.5 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Miserable.
Yeah. And like, your brain does funny things to you. So like, in all honesty, my biggest problem has been myself. You know what I'm saying? That bit of either self-doubt or that little bit of like, just where you're overthinking things. You know what I'm saying? Like, if your players are saying that they're having fun, you should probably believe them, because I mean, in all honesty, it's kind of like like going up to somebody and be like, oh hi, my name is this, and they're like, okay, great, cool, I'm gonna call you Josh. No, my name is this. Like, is the best way to actually understand if your players are having fun is to ask them and to have them self-identify, like, of course I'm having fun. What are you talking about? Fucking last session was great. I loved it when the kobolds attacked. But like getting feedback from your players and kind of like not overthinking things, not letting those little doubts in the back of your mind get to you. That's really important for me. And it's one of the things that I've had to struggle with because, again, I'm always like thinking about things a little too hard. So I'll definitely say that that's probably the biggest hurdle I've run into.
I think it's important also to get like people's expectations of what they want to see from the game. Like whether that's like maybe that's subjects they're not comfortable with talking about, or if they're just looking to have fun and like fuck around, or if they're looking to be really serious, be really RP focused, or if this, some people like they want to play the game and all they just want to roll dice and be in combat. Other groups want to be really roleplay focused, and it's just kind of, I think it's really important to have that talk with your players.
If you're running a game, communication is key. That's just the way it is.
See, I don't know if it's my turn to go with my opinion yet, but
yeah, sure. Go ahead. You're all good.
Oh man,
mine is okay. I'm very frequently the DM, and my pet peeve is the thing I struggle with a lot is where people will stop and be like, "That's not how it." Well, I don't agree. Rule 0. Like when you sit at the table, you accept the fact that the DM is playing the rules as he sees fit. Maybe because if you want to do that, you're like, well, I found 1,000 gold pieces. That's 196 pounds. You can't walk now. Like if you want to be a jerk, you can. But like, let each person play their own, the way that they play. You agreed to come to my table and play the game with me. Mm-hmm. So I might be a little bit looser with the rules than the next guy. But the thing is like, you have to, when you come to the table, I believe you make a contract. It's a verbal agreement with however many players are there that you are going to show up, and when you're there, you're going to play. So that means, and I've played games with people where they're like, it's a perception check, and they're like, I don't want to. But
I
you're the
didn't
one
ask your opinion.
Right, you're the one doing it. Like that time we played Call of Cthulhu, and you need the persuasion. The person had a 60 in persuasion. Everybody else had a 2. And he's like, well, I can role play how I want to play. Get the fuck away. Like, go get off the table. I'm sorry, because, like, you make a group, like, when you play a game and, like, the rogue doesn't want to pick locks or check for craft, why'd you pick a rogue? You could have picked anything else. Why'd you pick a rogue or a wizard that just does Pilates all day or something stupid? I get it. It's a funny story when you're telling somebody for, like, 8 seconds. But you've got to agree you're going to be part of a game. Mm-hmm. And whether that game is 1 session or 6 years, it doesn't matter. It's your agreement. When I get there, I'm going to be your feelings don't matter. You come in, you agree, I'm going to be part of this interactive experience with 4 other people, 3 people, whatever, and I'm going to do it. And the ones that come in there and they're like, I don't want to, or they're going to come in there and actively try to derail the campaign. Why are you here? Like, you're making it. I'm asking for a couple. Like for us, our sessions are 2 hours. 2 hours. Be present. Don't come in. Don't wander off. Don't whatever. Focus on what you're doing because that's the promise I made. I promised you 3. I'm gonna tell you a story.
Not loudly clickety clacking on your mechanical keyboard while we're playing.
Or deciding you have to fight on that, you have to get in Twitter wars with people because you decided it, or people that are upset because your character doesn't want to be a certain sort of way, or the ones that would wander off and have conversations on the sidelines, or the ones that get slurringly drunk and then forget they're playing so they can go FaceTime with other people. You're like, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I forgot that happened.
Yeah, it happened like all the time. That's why you and I and David didn't want to play that anymore. We're like, we're done. I can't stand it. Right. 99% of the time is me recapping what happened, and let the story flow. And if you can't commit to it, but you could do one shot, be like, can I guest play? Can I come in for one session? But I can't do more than one. Awesome.
At least when I get drunk while I'm playing, I'm still playing the game. I'm just playing it
No,
badly.
You're more unpredictable when you're drunk. Like, you make me work so hard when you drink, which is why you now have a drink limit, because I can only come up with so much nonsense.
Problem players will absolutely be the death of any game. And honestly, problem players always run into the habit where it's like, when you know you have a problem player, they either ruin the game entirely, in which case they have no one else to play with, or they get kicked out of that game and then they have no one else to play. Like, they quickly find themselves alone.
They either self-destruct the game or they disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, if you're saying you're going to play the game and you're showing up to play the game, actually play. Or why are you here? Are you here just to be a jerk? Are you like a IRL griefer in this game, like where you came to break shit and run off and giggle? Like, you're not going to get invited back. Like, people are going to stop texting, calling.
People are going to be like, oh, yeah, we're totally
no.
playing Sunday. Don't tell him we're playing Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right? Be like, oh, no, everyone got super busy. This person had a kid. That person broke a leg. Like, whatever. They're going to start making excuses. Be like, I've got dinner plans, whatever it is.
We totally created a new group chat because we were tired of it. Not even going to lie.
Fucking Wanty ate my baby. Like,
the evil campaign came from being frustrated from Descent to Avernus. And then I was like, I need a palate cleanser. Do you guys want to do this one? And then, I mean, honestly, these jackasses are the worst two people to play a game with ever. And then I thought, Brian will come in. He'll bring some common sense.
No.
Fucking
He made it worse. He made it worse.
Synergistically against Joel 100% of the time.
Yeah, all the time. But you know
Best
what?
way possible.
The thing, but then let's go on the opposite end. What makes the best tabletop experience?
Well, actually,
I'm privileged right now to say, as the DM of three people who are able to communicate any idea, they stay in character, they follow the routine, like they know what's going on. And the thing is, a DM, you guys don't question my rolls. You could be standing in front of a mountain and I'm like, roll a strength check. Why? You don't question. You're just like, all right, and then I gotta make up whatever. It's such a freeing moment as a DM to be able to play with people who are like, I'm gonna do all of this nonsense in character, moderate myself, and like be able to flow with the story in such a fluid way, but also be unpredictable enough to where I have to work. Like, nobody wants to play where you're like, and then you turn to the left. Brian, perception check. Oh, you see a door. And you're like, what is it? It's a 6. Cool. It's just a regular door. Like, no. Not at all. Like, I sent you into town, and next thing you know, you guys are throwing immovable objects and fixating to the side of houses while Brian runs off and kills the Rat King. Why? Because he can. You know, and next thing you know, he's setting up a coup while David is impersonating the Chosen One as an undead zombie creature, yet he's like, I'm gonna be a silver dragon and say I'm the Chosen One of Bahamut. Okay. We're setting up belts today. You guys were supposed to go buy food, but I guess here we are. But I mean, like, that to me, DMing for you guys is legitimately a privilege of mine, because you guys are such respectful, well-organized players. Like, what I get from this group is exactly what I think is just a privilege for any dungeon master to play, any game master to play, people who listen and stay in character the whole time. Like, that's a good table for me.
Well, we appreciate it, Joel.
We all love playing with you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I've got 3 other questions.
Candid.
We're running a little low on time, so I'm gonna go ahead and say, okay, let's go with this one. Obviously, the most popular role-playing game on the planet right now is Dungeons and Dragons. You can look at any metric in terms of, like, you know, what people are playing nowadays, or, you know, like what people more often than not play, And right now, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, it's huge. You know what I'm saying? It's everywhere. But there are a lot of other game systems out there. You know, you've got Vampire, you've got Call of Cthulhu, you've got all sorts of stuff. And there's really no shortage of, things out there to explore. So a lot of movement has been generated within the last 6 months or so from people who want to branch out into other things. As gamers yourselves, what would you say is another game that you have played or game that you would want to play that is not Dungeons and Dragons?
I'm going to step away for a second, but you guys can answer while I'm gone.
All right.
I'm going to let David go this one. Start this one.
All right, David, go ahead.
All right, I'll roll a 5, but I'll take it. I got a 2 for here. Actually, like 2 with like an amendment onto one of them. One we have played that is almost like 2 games that are adjacent to each other. Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green. I am about the cosmic horror, both past and present / future. Those are awesome. I mean, one is straight up old school Lovecraftian horror, which is very fun, despite Lovecraft being a king of the putzes. Still fantastic game, awesome to play. Very similar system and similar concept. Delta Green, which plays like some SCP / creepypasta horror dynamic. Similar system, just awesome. Very fun to play. Brian DMs them very well.
Oh my God,
I would like to play more of that. And one I haven't played, but it's been on my radar. Probably for almost 20 years now. Shadowrun. I would love to play Shadowrun sometimes. I've heard a lot of good things. I played some of the video games that have spawned off of it. I know some people have played it and have heard little like snippets of things here, and I'm like, ooh, one day. That one's on my list. I would love to play Shadowrun.
Actually, got the starter set for that one right over here. So, like, maybe we don't know.
What is Shadowrun?
Shadowrun?
Yeah, now I'm all interested.
Shadowrun
like
is
Cyberpunk?
and Cyberpunk had the most beautiful flipper baby you can imagine.
absolutely. It's magic. It's technology. It's fucking glorious.
What? Okay, yeah, we'll play that after this campaign's done.
How about yourself, Joel?
I gotta go with. I agree with David. That Call of Cthulhu game, unfucking believable. Like, I love it. I think Call of Cthulhu has got one of the best, dice systems best systems I've ever played. Like, if you're willing to roll it enough times, your character can do anything. Like, it's just the luck of the roll. Like, yeah, you might only have a 5 and you need to roll a 5 out of 100, but hey, you know what? 5% of the time, that stuff nails it. And then it gets better. Like, it's got like a very... there was a really cool game that I played called Dungeon Siege back in the day. And you just started as a farmer with a stick. So, like, what do? You start beating goblins with a stick. You're like, your bludgeoning is good because you're good at using a stick. And then you find, like, a sickle, and you're like, oh, now you're better with bladed weapons. You know, like, and Call of Cthulhu is the same way. Like, you build your character, you get a little bit better with your whatever you do. But then you could also do these, like, one-offs where you just try, and then, like, oh, you figured it out, so you can try it again. It's like practice, and it's really cool.
You just, like, happen to roll a 1 that one time, and...
There's always that magic chance you'll get the 1, yeah.
Here you go. I'm now a master hypnotist for no reason.
See, that was great, though. But yeah, Delta Green, Call of Cthulhu are great. Now, another one, I like the legend, and I like the story. David likes the story. We talk about it all the time. Ben and I talk about it. We listen to a podcast about it, but I don't know if I'd ever really want to, because I'm not spending that much money on minis, but I'd like to give Warhammer a go. See what that's about. But I'm pretty sure with the number of minis and like what it sounds like with the movements that I just don't have the brain for it. But
is there like a RPG version of Warhammer that we could like play it like in the like not like the wargaming, but like the role playing?
Smaller than Kill Team?
Absolutely there is. The same people who do the Doctor Who RPG, Cubicle 7,
Okay.
they also produce.
Doctor Who also.
Yeah, like.
Didn't know it existed.
Oh yeah, they do Doctor Who. In fact, they're just coming out at the end of this year with a revised second edition of Doctor Who, which is going to be fully compatible with the previous edition of Who, but it's going to clean things up a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to that. But Cubicle 7 also does the Warhammer RPG. In fact, I believe they've got like 3 different flavors of Warhammer out for their like Warhammer role-playing line right now.
Is that where the all guardsman party came from? Is that what that?
I'm not sure, but like I remember Joel, didn't I send you like what was essentially their starter set?
I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean like Cubicle 7 has always done me right. They do the Doctor Who. Back when they still had the license for Lord of the Rings, they also did Adventures in Middle-earth, which was a Lord of the Rings spin-off of 5th edition. But then they also had the One Ring, which was like Lord of the Rings, but it was its own kind of like system and whatnot. And one of the things I love about their Lord of the Rings RPGs was the way they handled travel. Because travel in most games is like, okay, well, you go from here to here. It takes a couple days, whatever. Maybe you do something on the road. Maybe you don't, whatever. But like with the Lord of the Rings RPGs that Cubicle 7 produced, travel was a really big thing. In fact, planning out the route that you guys were going to take was like critical to how your group was going to handle certain things, because depending on where you guys were going to go and like whatnot, also it determined like, okay, well, where do we go? Because like on the one hand, we could go this and it takes less time, but we have to go through a much more like heavily contested area, which is a lot harder. Or we could try to take this place, which is going to add to our time, but it's a little bit easier on us, you know. And you, like the more you travel, the more like the corruption kind of grows and whatnot. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's an interesting
dynamic. I'd be interested in like exploring the Warhammer like universe. But I don't think any of us have the bandwidth or money to play the actual wargaming game. But I'd be interested in playing the role-playing game at some point.
I'd be down for it.
I'd be down for it.
The other one, obviously, I echo Joel and David, and Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green were a blast. I've always been interested by both the Star Wars RPG and the other one that's caught my interest is, and now I'm spacing out, but
Central to Major Tom.
Before we started talking about Warhammer, I had a thought. Just give me a second. I'll think of it.
I forgot. We played Conan. Brian and I played Conan the Barbarian when we had a lot of downtime at work. That is ridiculous.
Superheroes. That's what I was thinking of. Like a super. I always thought it'd be fun to play a superheroes game, but I just haven't had the chance. I listened to a podcast where they finished their original D&D campaign, and then they tried a bunch of different systems. And I believe it was the Masterminds one. It sounded like
Mutants and Masterminds. Yeah.
You talked about that one. Pretty much the only game that David, Ben, and I all seem to be like, we have zero interest in playing again, would be Vampire the Masquerade. I do not believe that is a game you play online. I just don't think. I think that is one that we would be good at in person, but didn't work for us.
Yeah. And you know, everyone has their own flavor too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's always going to depend on, like, say, group dynamic and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think for me as Vampire the Masquerade, like no offense to anyone that enjoys it, just like the flavor doesn't work for me because I was like trying to figure out like what I just couldn't wrap my head around my character who was freshly turned just immediately going like serial killer mode. Like I couldn't get it to like I couldn't get it in my head. Like maybe I just needed to come at it a different way, but that was just me.
Did I misread this? Did David enjoy the game?
I did.
Did you?
I did. Well. I'm a big horror nerd. If it involves like weird spooky dooky things, murdering people, usually about it.
Yeah. See now, correct me if I'm wrong. Vampire the Masquerade is part of World of Darkness, correct?
That is correct.
Which is Werewolf the Apocalypse, Mage the Ascension. I think they got like another one like Anansi and Bastet and all these other ones, like things that fall out there.
They've got things like Hunter, they've got Wraith the Oblivion, they've got Demon, they've got Changeling, they've got Mummy. God, what was the other stuff that they did?
This is a very unpopular thing, but like, I like the monsters. I like werewolves, I like shapeshifters, I like anything with magic. Like, literally anything with magic. I watched the entire Netflix show of Winx. It's about girls at a fairy school. Because it had magic in it. Like, I like magic. I don't like vampires. Because I find vampires other than what we do in the shadows. Because that is unfucking great. What we do in the shadows is probably the greatest vampire thing I've ever seen in the entirety of my life.
Because it's making fun of vampires.
Oh, yeah.
It is. But vampires are my thing. Like, well, I like them. I'll watch vampire movies for the most part, but for the most part, I find like the reductionist of the vampire being like, "What are you gonna do? Blood." And they're like, "How about tomorrow? More blood." Looking for fun? Blood. Bad day? Blood. Oh, okay. You know, there's other things than blood, and they're like, blood.
There's not blood.
They're like, we can go do a lot of banging. Yes, with blood. Shut the fuck up! I'm sick of it! Like, so you're gonna live forever, but yet all of your interests are reduced to just one thing! Like, okay, that's immortality, but what are you gonna be interested in? Just blood. But I like meat. Well, not anymore. Not anymore, blood bag. You're gonna just play with blood.
It can get a little... I mean, again, like you said, you know, sometimes it's like Cyclops. What are you going to do? I'm going to blast with my eye lasers. What are you going to do tomorrow? Blast with my eye lasers.
Yeah. Pine after Phoenix. Pine after Jean Grey. And then blast you with my eye lasers.
Right. Fight with Wolverine. Eye lasers. Jean Grey. Repeat.
Oh, wait, no. Motorcycle.
Ah, yes.
The occasional motorcycle thrown in the cycle.
My motorcycle. He varied.
For myself, go ahead.
No, that's it. I would be down to play any other game. Werewolf the Apocalypse, all about it. Like Mage the Ascension, super stoked to play Mage. I would love to play that. But
as soon as that comes out for 5th edition, I will let you know, sir.
Yeah. But Dungeons and Dragons right now it's definitely up there, but I would honestly say that and Call of Cthulhu. Like I would put if somebody came to me and I had to pick between like Call of Cthulhu and Dungeons and Dragons, I mean like that'd be a rough pick. Like if there were two Brian Ballards who were both holding like I've got this Dungeons and Dragons or Call of Cthulhu, I'd be like, you know, because I wouldn't know who to pick. And honestly, it had to be Brian because, like, if any random ass person goes, like, "Gonna play Dungeons and Dragons," Ballard's doing other shit. Gonna go see what he's about.
Well, I suppose it's a good thing that I have some 5th edition adventures that are made by the same people who do Call of Cthulhu. So
fantastic. Now on Nerds of Legend, Brian Ballard will be the new DM. Goodbye. I will be playing Tabletop Ninja.
Well, that's where I got the idea for Mr. Whiskers, because like they've got the cat in
Mr. Whiskers, the number one chaos agent of all time.
I just basically played a Dreamlands cat, and it was great.
All right. I think we got time for probably one more question, Brian.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Okay. We've covered a lot of stuff tonight. By the way, again, thank you everyone who decided to join us for tonight. We really appreciate you spending your time with us on this Tuesday. To kind of leave on one more kind of question. I mean, we've had a lot of fun talking about like different games we've been in, different games that we've enjoyed and whatnot. Different things here and there, how to get into games, how we got into games, and so on and so forth. But I also think that like when it comes to games, everyone has that particular character that they get really protective about because it's like their baby. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like whether it was your first character or whether it was just like your favorite character of all time to play. Everyone's got that like beloved character that they always kind of like when you have a great game session, like, oh my God, that character is enshrined in your memory for all of time. On the reverse side, you also have that character where you're all like, I never want to play that again.
I know exactly who they are.
Just like whatever I did there, it didn't work. I burn it. Burn the character sheet. I'm never playing that character again. I want to know what your guys' most beloved and most hated characters you've ever played is. Roll. Oh. I got a 1.
Oh.
17.
Ooh.
3.
9.
All right, Joel, go for it.
All right, I'm gonna let everybody guess because all of you have played with my favorite character of all time. You guys,
Stanley.
Stanley Finkelstein. He was a Call of Cthulhu character who was like, my goal was for him. He was like a science nerd. He was this short, fat. He was an annoying little dumpy guy who was like a smart ass and talk shit all the time. But my goal for him was to be like, he was like hardcore science. He wanted to be like a physics professor at Harvard University, and he fawned over this character who actually taught at Harvard. But my goal was for him to be like that trope in like all the movies where like there's a guy being like, oh, don't do this, and then he's like, oh, you're all inside. Let me tell you what's really going on, and then he like knows like everything there is to know about whatever like unnamed horror is haunting the world, and
he's like the dude in Pacific Rim that like bakes his mind with kaiju brains. Yeah.
Or the guy in like Final Destination who's like, I know death, I've seen it. You're like, oh, that's dumb. You know, that's what I wanted Stanley to be. Stanley to be that guy that knew everything. You know? And Stanley was great. Stanley was like, he was so much fun to play. Just this nerdy little smart ass, like like socially awkward jackass who didn't know anything, but man, he picked it up. He became like an occultist. Oh my God, he was so much fun. So yeah, I brought Stanley back. He was like a.
He's been a recurring character.
Uh-oh. Joel has frozen.
Don you Comcast.
I saw today, like...
Turned out to be a fucking pit feed. Who knew? So I'm here now. Magic's a hell of a lot easier than it was there. I don't have to do all that cutting myself and finding special knives and shit. So I'm going to do tattoos. What do you want? Like, that guy was like so much fun. But yeah, I'll bring Stanley into anytime. Anytime you hear that pitchy, nasally, nerdy voice, which is my actual voice, and then it gets worse. When it gets even more nasally and nerdy, that's Stanley. Very close to my heart. I love Stanley to death. And I will put him in every single campaign I do from this time till the end of time.
So what's your least favorite character then?
That would be the second game when we were at work playing, and I played that cleric. When he was supposed to be like, and I had no idea how to play a cleric, but he ended up just being this like agent of chaos, and he's supposed to be lawful good, but yet he's like attacked a beholder with baby bombs or something. It just that it just the character I never like playing that character. Like, what was it, Doomrig Stone? He was so boring after a while. Like, it just got to be. He's on Verge the same. Him and like Pelly and Oakstaff, the druid and the cleric, sucked. I don't think I ever want to play a druid or a cleric again. Like, it literally soured the whole class to me. I was like, this sucks. So yeah, I didn't like him. I mean, it's the wild shape is fun, but it's like, and it's just not how I like to play.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, those two were not fun.
How about yourself, David?
For me, I think my favorite, which I totally ripped the name off of my favorite LOL character for the PC, Simic Hybrid. I'm having some massive brain farts. Warlock. Basically, I try to bring Cthulhu into just about anything I can manage to bring that specific brand of cosmic horror to. So I modeled it after, like a lesser child of the elder gods, just covered in tentacles, madness, shot lasers out of stuff, drove people crazy. Was a lot of fun. For whatever reason that I still not sure why, our DM tried to run us through a brothel, and oh yeah, it went weird. Some Japanese places, and I made some people uncomfortable. It was great.
Weird.
It was awesome.
That was not mine. That was Corey deciding to go through it.
Hey, I'm just saying, it happened, and that's where I took it. We went, you don't nuke a country twice. That's where we went with it. That was probably my favorite character. He was just literally and figuratively a blast to play. And my least favorite's probably an Arakara Ranger. I'm like, I'm going to do something wildly different. Yeah, no, I think that got deleted so quickly. I don't remember the name of the character at all.
Did we play that one?
Huh?
Did we play that one? Because that sounds familiar.
Oh, it was like one. It only made it one session.
That was when we were like jumping games like over and over again for like a few.
Oh yeah, because my attention span was that of a child. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just like,
still is.
Yeah, Rangers are weird and not for me. My hats off to anyone who can successfully play a Ranger type character.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not my bag. Not my bag.
Place, but yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't work out in the campaign very well.
You're up. I've got I don't have like a favorite character, because they all have their moments. I'd say my Call of Cthulhu character was a lot of fun. I can't remember his last name, but it was Seamus O'Flaherty or something like that. Seamus McMillan, and he was basically this Irish World War II or one veteran.
One.
It would have been he was an Irish World War I veteran who was in service to another character in our group who was basically a rich guy. Alex's character. He was basically the bodyguard for Alex's character, and he had a bit of like PTSD stuff going on, but I think the most fun thing was in the Call of Cthulhu universe, belief is a big deal, and I played him as a highly religious, very like devout Catholic character, and he was basically, because of his belief in that religion, it gave him power against the creatures that we were fighting against. So he'd like prep with holy water, he'd prep with like crosses and crucifixes, he'd bless things before we got into a fight. And because of his belief in what was going on, which we'd roll for, he was wildly successful, and basically over time he almost like we played him, what was it, 3 sessions, or maybe it was 5. We played multiple sessions,
like 5, I think.
and by session 5, enough time had passed. He essentially became like a Van Helsing, like demon hunter, and so he'd like come and he's have like bandoliers of holy water and crucifixes and just like by the power of Christ compels you, and just like kill demons just because, like, you know, in the Cthulhu universe, by accident, by virtue of his own belief in his god. You know, and it was a lot of fun because me and Alex, we had a lot of play-by-play, and he despised Stanley, which was also hilarious in play. That was a lot of fun. I also played a very horny satyr that was a lot of fun by the name of Zerikos. He's
the one that you were really like, you had to play like a drunken master to get like a few drinks in to even get his accent right.
I know. Yeah, he was basically you know, from Hercules. He's basically Phil, and I couldn't get it right unless I was a little bit tipsy, and then it led to weird shit happening. But he was a lot of fun. I'd say least favorite. I had this thought until I started talking, and probably my least favorite character. Shoot. I had it. Now I can't think of it. I don't really have a least favorite character. I haven't encountered that yet. I probably could if I sat and thought about it a while, but
I mean, it was probably your vampire character, to be honest.
Probably, yeah. I didn't really have a lot of... I think I put some thought into it, but I don't think I put enough, and when we got down to it, I don't think I was really connecting with him a whole lot, and it made for the session being kind of weird for me. So, you know, I know there's a different one that I had in mind coming into it, but now I'm not thinking of it.
No, who was your least favorite character?
Well, we just said I was probably my vampire character was probably my least, but I think there was one that was there's one that I was thinking of, but now I can't think right now.
You know what my least favorite character you played was?
Well, who?
That fucking Spore Barbarian that killed like everything.
Yeah, but that's because he was broken. He was so much fun because he was broken because he could kill everything.
Spore Barbarian? That sounds awesome.
Golnor.
He did a barbarian where it was Golnor. Spore Barbarian, but then like because I didn't understand anything about Dungeons and Dragons, I thought if you had like poison attributes, you were now immune to poison. So like all these things are killing him, and then when it gets Zugtmoy, this like literally that's all she does is poison, and I'm like, oh, you're immune. So he like killed this demon lord because I had no idea what I was doing.
Also, I killed a bone devil at level 7 because he didn't have a full understanding of how things worked.
Absolutely not. Like, oh my god, I hate it. I remember coming back and telling it to Brian, and he's like, "You're just not doing it right."
Yeah.
Like, I hated playing that game with you guys. You guys sucked. What is this? This is an elder dragon. What are you? You've got a stick and a fork.
Yeah, I think if we look at it that way, I think he was a great power character, but at the same time, there was not a whole lot of like substance behind that character. So no. I think I didn't enjoy that one as much because it was kind of like a lot of my characters can sometimes I have like a very one-dimensional idea behind them, and then like I don't flesh them out as much as I should. It's a weakness in me in character creation, and sometimes they just kind of like turn into I had one. So like Zeracos, I had an idea of where I wanted Zeracos to be, but because another member in the group basically had decided he was the same sort of personality as mine, I ended up having to kind of like it was initially supposed to be like a posh like Mr. Tumnus, and then like this other guy, he was also playing like a posh character, and it was boring. So I was like, well, I'm gonna go make a hard pivot and be like the antithesis of this. So now I've this brash, obnoxious, just like horny satyr, as opposed to just being like this other way. And I think because I was working from that, it became a character that he eventually became a character that I wasn't a huge fan of, because he was so one dimensional and just basically like, he was fun to play, but also at the same time I'm like, it's boring just being lewd all the time.
It was still a lot of fun to DM for that character.
Oh yeah, he was a blast, but at the same time I didn't. There are certain parts I got bored of him, and he was just not fun after a while. So
we're going a little over on time. I'll be real quick on mine. As far as favorite characters go, I've had a lot of characters over the years. One of the first games I actually played back in high school with my buddy Matt, who ran the game. I played a half-orc barbarian called Gork, Son of Fire, and he was hilarious. I loved the way that like I was kind of playing with like a couple of buddies and whatnot, and one of my friends, Nate, his girlfriend was also playing. And like, kind of through accident, me and his girlfriend like started like our characters started hooking up or whatnot. And I was always like very like he's like, whatever, man, don't fucking worry about it. But it was hilarious. I really loved the way Matt DM'd things too. He was a great DM, still is. But then there was another character I really loved where I've got a friend and he really wanted to like run like kind of like Gary Gygax level of like hard adventures. He specifically told me that like he wanted every session to have at least one player death. Like that was his goal. He just wanted to like he wanted it to be like hard mode. So he was gonna like really try to like murder us every time. And I played a cleric, and I showed him just how good I could be, because like we would like save everybody, and like some of that was due to him just rolling terribly or whatnot, but like other times it would be like, oh wow, that cleric like really did a good job of like making sure nobody died. In fact, like there were people who were supposed to be with us who were supposed to die due to like cinematic convenience, and I'd just be like, oh, don't worry, they're fine. And so like he fucking hated me. And then I accidentally basically I was the one who accidentally killed the whole party. The whole party wiped because of me. And I was the only one to live through it. Everyone had to make a new character, but they all wiped because of me. Not because of what he did, because of something I did. And it was just like, okay.
You were illiterate?
No, I was not illiterate.
Something different.
Yeah, that was the Parker's character. Parker's character was playing the barbarian, and so he couldn't read the clue that was on the door. So like when I had gotten like everyone else murdered accidentally, purely through accident, like I did not even do anything. I mean, like quite literally did nothing. But like everyone else was dead. Parker went into the room, but he couldn't read the note on the door, so he didn't know what the clue was to do the thing, and so he just died. Just straight out died. Least favorite character, I'm actually gonna say there was a Pathfinder game I did with a guy. You remember Rick Reeves, don't you, Joel? Big Rick.
I never met him, but I knew of him.
Yeah. Back when Rick Reeves was still alive, and back when right before I joined Synchron, I was working UPS, and Rick was running games and whatnot. He was doing Pathfinder. This is like first edition Pathfinder. We did like a pirate campaign, the Skulls and Shackles campaign, and I hadn't done Pathfinder at that point. All I knew at that point was 3.5. But I jumped in on this Pathfinder game because I was kind of desperate to do some role playing, and I made a rogue, and like it was okay, but like I couldn't do anything with it. Like I just wasn't like I wasn't having fun with it because like it just was. It was one of those things where it's like, you know, you think to yourself like, oh yeah, that's gonna be a great idea for a character, and then you play it and it's just like, yeah, it's fine, whatever.
So
It's,
yeah, we've all had those.
yeah, it's just like, okay, this character's here, I guess, whatever. And so like
really jacked up about a character, you're like, this is gonna be great, and then you play him and like your first few rounds, you're like, this sucks.
yeah, because I'm just on the boat. I've got like a bow and arrow, and I'm like, okay, I fire and I hit, I do damage. Okay, it was fine mechanically speaking. It was just like I had nothing invested into it. It just was a character who I had kind of like thrown together to like be part of this game. So the eventually I went to Rick and I was all like, hey, I'm really not like having fun with this character. It's nothing like you're doing or anything. It's just I'm not very invested. Can we like figure out a way where I can like do something else? And that's when I brought in my alchemist character, who also turned out to be one of my favorite characters because he was so goddamn broken for that game. Because again, we're pirates, we're spending a lot of time at sea, and my alchemist was like spending every second that we weren't doing something else crafting magical items and potions and whatnot. So like by the time we would eventually get to wherever we were going in there like space marines. We were fucking like loaded up to the we were fucking crazy. Like we had all sorts of magic swag and everything else. Nothing posed a chance. It was fucking great.
No. Well,
so that is where we are now and how we got here. Again, we want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We know that it was in a little late notice and whatnot, but we're glad you all were able to spend your Tuesday nights with us. Yeah. You guys want anything else to say?
Again, if you haven't already, please give us a follow. We're gonna put up a screen here in a little second that's got our social media pages up on there on how to follow us in other places. And thanks for joining us again. We'll be coming back again next week. We'll be back in Eberron. So,
and if you guys want to send us mail, possibly for a topic that we can cover next time that we're talking nerdy, feel free to send us an email at nol talknerdy at gmail.com. And if you have any suggestions or anything, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. All right,
and
guys.
We look forward to,
thank you all for joining
us next week.
All right. Good night, everyone.